Hello, my name is Jessica Thomas. I am a math teacher at University High School in Morgantown. I'll be entering my sixth year this year. And one thing I'm really passionate about is the Desmos program. I always have been. Thought it was a really cool program to use in your math classroom, but this past year of remote learning, I learned that it was not just for math. So I've been trying to get the word out to other teachers of other subjects about this really cool program that you can use for any type of instruction, not just remote instruction. So today you'll sort of be exploring the features of it, and then at the end you'll have a little bit of time to explore how to make something yourself. But today is more about what are the things you can do with it, and then you can choose if that's something that you think is useful to you. So we'll let Smita get joined into our class here too. I see that a lot of you have already figured out how to upload something and type in something. And you also should be able to see the other people and some of their responses come in and read about those too. And we have a few people who just joined us. In order to participate today, you'll have to follow the instructions that we have on our screen. So if you could do that real quick so we could go ahead and get started more quickly here. I don't know if the things in the chat stay there for new people, so I'll put the link one more time in the chat for people who still want to join. You can click that. I'm going to change my presentation screen to what I see as the teacher. So let me. Okay. So as you're sort of participating, you can also feel free to click back to sort of this open, I guess is what we're calling it, so that you can see what I see as a teacher, so that you could see what you would be seeing as a teacher, or if you're someone who is going to be sharing this with other people in your district or something like that. So we'll go ahead and sort of get started. Again, you're viewing it as a student right now. If you want to see the teacher end, you can come to your open screen and see that. Um, First thing that showed you how you can do is that just like a lot of interactive presentation software, students can type in answers to whatever you might ask them. But a new feature that Desmos has is that you can also have students upload a picture to it. So I see people doing that. We got some fun pictures coming in. And then after you submit, you can make it so that the students can see the responses of 3 other students in the class, and only 3, just 3 at random. Or you can turn that feature off if you, for whatever reason, didn't want them to see what other people might be saying. So you kind of read about some of the other people in our session here. And if typing in a sort of a paragraph form isn't for you or your students, you can also use a table to type in information. You probably wouldn't really do it in forms of questions like I have here, but if you ever have some sort of science lab or something that usually is a worksheet with a table on it, it could be done digitally in this format too. You can still have them sort of fill out tables that way. So we've got looks like we're here sort of in the northern part of the state with Harper's Ferry, and some different variety of people here. And we'll wait for a few more people to be able to hop up to where we are on our tables. If you have a question at any time, feel free to just turn on your microphone and say it, or you can put it in the chat. I'll kind of click back and forth so I can check in on those. One thing that you'll notice if you're waiting for us is that you are frozen on these first 3 screens. If you look on the open screen, you'll see like those first 3 screens are orange on mine, and that means that you can move back and forth between those, but you cannot go past it, which is an interesting feature. I can also see that I have 4 people on slide 3 and then 2 people on slide 2, so you can kind of keep track about where students might be. for whatever purposes. Okay. Right, looks like we got most of our people moving on forward. We got some dog pictures, some fun pictures being uploaded, and some tables here. We'll let people finish their tables out. And we got one more person. Hello, Vanessa. We got some more people in. Cool. I'll put the link in the chat one more time since I don't really know if it stays in there. So for my people who have just joined us, there's a link in the chat. You can click to join our class so that you can participate in what we're doing today. They won't really be shown on the screen. You have to do it on your screen. Okay, for my people who have already sort of played around with this typing in answers either in text boxes or in tables, I'm going to go ahead and open up the next section of questions that I want to show you how they can work. So what I'm going to do is open up the multiple choice questions. So there should be 7 more slides that you can go through. And as you're answering them, they are covering all different topics. So kind of think about, okay, this might be an art question, but how could I use it for what I do or for what people I help do? I know we've got some people that aren't just strictly teachers of a subject. All right, thank you, Cassie. I haven't been able to attend any of the other sessions this week because we've had a funeral to go to. So this kind of my this one of the things I've been able to do. So I haven't noticed that because I haven't been in there. Okay, so most of you have said, notice that description of the different types of questions you can answer. Um, if as you're answering, you want to watch what happens on the teacher view, you can see that. Right now, I have the first one up as the teacher view of the art example, where it's just basically a which choice is it, and you can choose which answer is correct, and you can kind of watch as most of you are choosing the correct answer. This is something you have to be careful with students about, what are you sort of projecting if you are projecting. You don't really want to obviously project the screen that has everybody choosing the right answer. Everybody's just going to look up and pick that one. But it does sort of have that if you set what the correct answer is, you can check that. The other thing that can happen is if you're on the big screen, I can see, okay, this is how far people have made it, and I see some check marks, so people got that one right. The second question is one where you have to explain something, so it doesn't really have a right answer. You can also see that you can put in pictures instead of text as a choice if you need to do that for whatever you're doing. And it's interesting. I did this presentation a couple weeks ago just with people in my county, and everybody was also choosing Abraham Lincoln in that one too. Awesome. I'm seeing a lot of you working on the checkboxes one. So for something that you might want students to be able to choose more than one option, you can have them do that. There's not a way for it to like automatically pop up and ask them explain your choices, but you could put in just a regular text box for them to do that if you wanted them to. Um, So we're all looking at some multiple choice reflection about where do you think these types of questions might be beneficial for you. And you might be thinking, well, I've used interactive presentation software before, like Nearpod or even Pear Deck, and think I can do most of those things. But we're starting to come into some things that are a little bit more unique to Desmos. And the other thing that's nice about Desmos is that everything that you see right now is totally free for you, no matter where you teach. Certain features on Nearpod are paid features. All of the features on Desmos are completely free. All right. So, using these with formative assessment, multiple choice with explanation is really great instead of just making students pick something they got to explain something. And sometimes you really get to see where someone is like, happen to pick the right one and way off track. Other times that they've picked the wrong one, but their reasoning is sound. They've just like chosen the wrong one. Um, and yes, holding them at that question before moving on is a great thing to do because, like, you guys are all stuck right here. You can't really just fly all the way through. You have to sort of stay with everybody else. I'm glad that you think it's helpful to teach teachers with this. I think a variety of question types is really great. So as people are still finishing these responses, I'll say that I've always used this in my math classroom for years, but this past year, this is how I taught every single lesson for remote and in-person learning. Every single kid, I just had a lesson that we went through together, whether they were at home or at school or whether we were all at home. And it was really great for that. We didn't like using it every single day, but it was the easiest tool to use to teach math this year. So really familiar with all of the tools this year that is on there. All right, so first things, multiple choice, easy stuff. The next thing that's interesting are the sketch questions. So I'll let you have a second to move forward onto sort of the example of that whenever it lets you. Sometimes it's a little slow to let people click forward. Yeah. You can draw sketches on a blank background, another, you know, picture for them to draw on. You can choose different colors for them. The only downside about Sketch, I think, is that they cannot see their other people's responses. How on a couple of those questions, you've been able to see a few things that other people have typed. You can't do that with Sketches. You can also, as you can see, put a video in if it's something that's saved to your Chromebook or other computer. So we're going to try a couple of these together of some different ways that you could see how to use sketching tools, not just for math. And of course, you can probably already think about ways to use it for math, but it's not just math that we draw things in. So shade in all of the states that you think have hosted the Olympics. If you happen to know what years they were, then you can type them in, or other locations beyond just states if you remember the cities. So we'll see which states we remember. And if you are curious, there are 5 different states that have hosted the Olympics. Feel free to mess around with the color option at the top. You'll also notice that you could have text typing and some other features here on this sketchpad. As you are sketching, if you want to, you can click over to the open video page, whatever you want to call it, and you can see what I see. As a teacher, I see right away when someone starts coloring something. So you obviously maybe wouldn't want to have this projected. Maybe it depends on what your sort of goals are. But I can see right away, if someone's coloring in something that doesn't make any sense, I could address that with them. It's always fun about who remembers which ones. There's always a few that no one is even aware of here. Okay, I think people have mostly made their choices. Another thing that is really nice is that I can see the individual responses of all 7 of us here, but I can also look at the overlay. So if you want to see it, you can go to the Hopin page and I can actually stack everybody's on top of each other. And I can see that we have a lot of people coloring in California and Atlanta, or Georgia, I guess I should say. And then some people doing Utah over here, and then a few others that have sort of lighter colors that some people have chosen. And so that overlay feature, just depending on your question, can be really neat to see sort of where the majority of people are answering. If you are curious, it was actually Missouri in 1904. New York has hosted twice. California has hosted 3 times, and then Georgia and Utah are sort of the more recent ones that most people remember. Those are the fun geography type ones. When you are ready, there's a couple other sketch ones I'll let you try out and let you think about some ways that the sketch options could be used. For other people that are in the meeting that might not have joined us yet, over in our actual sort of where we're progressing through everything, if you click on the chat, you can click on the link and it will enroll you in there. And so a lot of you are looking at the English one right now with a poem where you can underline something. That's kind of maybe sort of a high school type example, but I even think for lower grades, you could have this is where students could edit sentences and put in the punctuation, and you could look at the overlay as a class. So where is everybody putting the comma? Things like that. One thing that I'm also going to do is it is possible for me to send you a message just to you to tell you whatever I want to tell you. Good job, cool, whatever. So I'm going to do that for everybody, and it's going to show up at the top of your screen. There'll be a little red bubble that appears once I send it. Just so you see another feature that exists on these. You cannot reply to the message at this time as a student, which is kind of a pain, but this feature was really nice for remote learning, as you can probably imagine, to be able to send messages for students, especially as they were drawing something. I could immediately see um, they're making a mistake with their algebra or whatever, and immediately comment and say, "Hey, that's supposed to be a plus instead of a minus," or something like that, just like you would do normal setting. Hopefully, that's not something we have to do next year, but if it has to. And you can see that math example is how I really had students doing all kinds of algebra. It's just drawing on the screen, which is not, kind of hard to do with just a mouse or your mouse pad, but useful in certain situations. I see Barbara has figured out the, like, typing option, which was a nice feature. They didn't start out the year with typing, and then later on, they got the typing feature in there. You also see that it is possible to make things sort of be self-checking for students, that when they type in certain numbers or certain words, it will give them smiley faces or whatever. It's a little bit difficult to do that, but if anyone's interested in that, if you just email me, I'll be happy to kinda teach you how to do that. I see, Cassie mentioning about physics and having diagrams that you might already have to like label, and I've had other science teachers tell me that like you could use this sketch feature to, label parts of a cell or parts of your body, or whatever. Sketching might not be as useful in certain subject areas. Also, super great math wise, not just for solving something, but you can have a graph and they might have to graph something and you can watch as they graph the line or whatever. Something else that's really handy is that if students are signed in, all of this work is saved automatically. There's no final submit that they have to do. So if a student comes into a lesson and only does half of it and then leaves the classroom, they at least have still done half. You don't have to wait for like a submit at the end, like a Google form or something might have. So it does save up to wherever they get to, and they can get back into it if you want to. Yes, it can be used self-paced, asynchronous. So in Montague County, we had several days where like Fridays were asynchronous. And so I would just make a lesson and turn off the pacing, and they could just go through at their own time whenever they wanted to complete their lesson. So yes, you can totally do that. I also do that just even in the regular in-person classroom setting if we're trying to practice writing equations of lines. I have a bunch of slides that already have a line on there, and they go through and type what the equation would be at their own speed. Um, Mostly, if you're doing it synchronous, I think it's a good idea to keep people mostly together. It helps with the engagement, which is what my 2 o'clock session is about, keeping everybody together. There is one more set of questions that you can use, and I call these the movable questions. So I'll let you skip forward to see about your movable questions. There's kind of two types of those. You can do ordered lists and card sorts. The card sorts let you make like digital cards that students can sort into piles, whether those piles have certain answers. So if you're thinking like vocabulary words, like the word and the definition, or if it doesn't have anything that has to have sort of one particular arrangement. You've Most teachers have done some sort of card sort where you're trying to sort things in different groups and animals versus this or whatever. Um, you can put pictures on the cards. You can have really, really big groups, just pairs, whatever you want. And you can also watch them as they pair things up and see how they're doing. One thing to note is that you do have to place the cards directly on top of each other, like cover it up for them to click together. Not just get near it, not just kind of place them border wise. You got to put one right on top of the other. I'm going to let you try a card sort. This is for foreign language. We'll see how good any of us remember some of our Spanish. And as you're working on your card sort, if you want to come over to the open screen, you can see what I see as people are matching. Like I see Barbara has made 2 correct matches because her cards have been turning green. As someone makes an incorrect match, it turns orange. And they will click together. If they don't seem to click together, really try to drag one, cover one of them up with another one. Is there an ability for two teachers to present at the same time on the same page? There is a way to have a co-teacher, and so I'm not exactly sure the scenario you're exactly would be talking about. I don't have a co-teacher personally, but I know that other teachers in my building had a co-teacher where both teachers were kind of in this dashboard at the same time. Yes. So you would both be able to be in this dashboard and both be able to comment on the students' work as they went. I think that both people are able to sort of open up more slides as needed. I did do it a couple times with like a student teacher, made them like a co-teacher so they could get in there and kind of be interacting with students. So I think so, if that's what you meant. Yeah, the co-teacher button, I'll click here. If I'm on my dashboard, I can click the title at the top and then I can hit share dashboard and then I can like type in the email of the person who's going to be helping with it and then they can see the same thing. My understanding. So we have some people got all of their matches so far, a couple people off a little bit. You'll notice you're able to go to slide 16 and it actually gives you a way to check yourself. I use this a lot because if not, students would just make any matches they want and just kept moving on. And this one made them check yourself. It's not something that's automatically included within the Desmos program. You have to know how to use the underlying code level in order to do it. But I'll be able to help you with that if that's something that you're interested in. And sometimes you might not be. Sometimes it's not going to be something that has sort of definite answers. So you might not need that. But if that's how I used it a lot for like, okay, here's an equation, here's some answers, like solve the equation, match the answer to it. So it kind of depends on what you're using it for. And then one more movable question whenever you're ready. You don't get all your Spanish words because you took French in high school, and that's okay. Um, We have one more movable type just so you can see another type of I don't use this personally very much, but I think it could be usable in some subjects and levels. But you can arrange things, whether you say least to greatest, or whatever, biggest to smallest, whatever. Can we arrange how the planets are? We'll see how you guys do with that. Usually people don't ever get them quite in the right order. And as you work on, placing your planets in the right order, you can think about how might you use either of these movable questions, whether it's the card sorts, or whether it is sort of the ranking ones. I like Stephanie says timeline of events. That's a great thing that I never thought about, to put things in order of when they happened, or even when history, right? Certain historical events. Yes. The card sorts sometimes is, students would kind of complain about a lot of card sorts, because it's hard for them to get like to the right answer as easily sometimes, but it is something a little bit different than, hey, solve this equation, type your answer in, you kind of get to match them up. Um, and it was really nice to be able to use. Yeah, we have a lot of people usually already have card sort lessons, and so it's kind of a way to put those in a digital form if that's easier, especially cards you got to cut everything out. This is kind of a digital tool, so even if it's just something that you just do for 10 minutes, it doesn't have to be a whole lesson, the whole class period. It can just be small pieces of your lesson. So Desmos has one more cool tool that I like to show people besides those. Those question types are what you can put into your own activity. So, you make your account on Desmos, you go to create activity, and you can choose if you're going to sketch and multiple choice and whatever, just the way that you make any other kind of slideshow presentation. Um, there's also a digital Guess Who game through Desmos that's called Polygraph. Students are paired up automatically. One chooses an image from the set, and then the other has to ask yes or no questions. This is a really cool tool for vocabulary and communication skills. I'm not going to show you how to make one because this is not very much time in these, but I did make a video that you can see there of how to. And remember, you can get back to these Desmos slides anytime you want by just going to student.desmos.com, and it should sort of show up there on your list. So we're going to actually play Polygraph together with our little group of 7. So if you click there, it will let you start a practice round, and then you'll be able to pick a celebrity or play against someone who's already picked one. So I see Vanessa's already got in. Um, just so that you kind of see how it works. There's Stephanie, Cassie, awesome. So it's working. So you'll do the practice round just so you see how it works, and then you'll be able to get matched up with someone in our little group here and play. I use Polygraph a lot at like the beginning of a unit when I'm like learning about, teaching about new types of graphs. I just like put all the graphs out there and let them use whatever language they want to talk about them. And then we'll learn about the proper vocabulary to use to talk about a parabola or something, and then later on, we'll play again, and I'll say, please use your actual vocabulary this time. So that's an interesting way to do it. But it can be used with anything that has pictures. So if you're doing celebrities, but you could do historical figures, characters from a book if you had pictures of them, anything in science that you're going to try to distinguish between. Really great things. So Cassie's waiting on a partner. We got everybody else practicing right now. Vanessa and Cassie put together. So we'll see how they do. On the teacher version, I'll get that sort of shared on the screen so you can see that. Can you share your Desmos board? Yes. So I told you this year I did every single lesson with Desmos in all of my math classes, but I didn't create every single one of those because someone else who taught Math 1 would make the lesson on graphing lines and then share it with me, and I would teach that one. And then I would make the lesson on graphing systems or whatever and share it with them. So we just, in our department, we just had a big list of here, someone's already made this activity. So yes, you can share them. You can find ones that are already made, not generally for stuff beyond math because it is a math website. Sometimes there's a few out there on like other non-math topics. But if you're a math person, you're pretty set because they pretty much have something on everything that you can then use for yourself, and it's all free. You never come across one that's paid in my life. I'm going to reshare my polygraph You can see. So it looks like Leslie, I think we have an odd number of people, so you'll have to wait for a partner until someone finishes theirs, but you can kind of watch on the open screen as everybody is asking questions. And when I do polygraphs, I generally do project this screen and let students see what questions other people are asking because some kids are like, I don't really know what to ask. So now we see we have a couple people have asked, is your person male or female? Gives them a sort of a place to pull from about what could I say in the first place. It's interesting watching adults play because you guys put capital letters and question marks and things at the end of your sentences, and the kids don't. They just put whatever. But we've got two games have been won. Usually after a game, it does ask a few kind of like reflection questions. So just a minute, Leslie, and you'll be able to get matched with somebody. There we go. Leslie will give, and then some other people will get sort of matched up. So we'll play for a couple more minutes. Just hopefully you might be able to be the opposite person this time. Sometimes it doesn't happen. Another feature that I haven't mentioned yet that I'll mention as you guys are playing the game is within Polygraph or within a regular Desmos lesson, you can anonymize the names, which is a feature that's like on Nearpod as well. If for whatever reason you don't want the names to show up. I usually leave the names in a polygraph because sometimes someone will accidentally click the wrong yes or no and they want to yell across the room to their partner what they meant. But if I click anonymize, and I'm going to do that now, it actually changes everybody's name, not to stars, but to different mathematicians and like computer scientists and people like that. And so there's always like kids freak out because they're like, why has my name changed? But I tell them, like, look that person up. Let's find out something about them. So it's kind of a cool feature. Then you just unclick anonymize and it switches back. You can also pause a class. So sometimes we'll be playing a polygraph with new graphs. I'll pause it. We'll learn the vocabulary, and then I'll unpause it and tell them to keep playing with using their new vocabulary. So you are able to sort of shut the thing down altogether without closing it. You can just like pause it. Also, how I gave assessments. I gave my assessments through Desmos this year, and whenever it wasn't class time, it would be paused so that they couldn't get in and work on the assessment. You guys are good. We haven't had any incorrect games yet. Right, as you sort of finish up a round with whoever you're playing against, if you'll return to your sort of original Desmos slideshow, um, there is a question at the bottom that says, can you think of a way to use this polygraph program in your classroom? So I see Stephanie has answered that as she was waiting already. All right, so we have, pictures, anything that uses pictures. I've even said there's already bunches of pre-made ones, even as just, you can see that didn't take us very long to log into and play. Even if it's just something that you play, I've seen one with like Disney villains and Disney princesses. There's something kind of fun digital to do that if you have a few extra minutes. Icebreakers at the beginning of the year. I mean, you can only put 16 pictures in, so I guess if you had a small group of students, you could even put their own pictures in, see what questions they ask about each other. Um, but you do have to kind of have a big group. Vanessa saying she works one-on-one. You do have to kind of have a bigger group. For other than that, if you just one-on-one, you wouldn't have to really do it in a digital format. So we have about 10 minutes left, and I'm going to sort of let you explore some things on your own for the 10 minutes that we have. And so there are two things that you can kind of do. Slide 20 says, here's a list of Desmos activities that have already been created by subject area that another educator found. I didn't find all of these. So if you want to look at some of those, if they fit your subject area and see some things that other people have done, you can look at those. If you don't feel like looking at that and you'd rather kind of dive into, well, how do I make this in the first place? Slide 22 contains links to a slideshow that tells you how do you make your account and make activities. Or if you'd rather watch a video on that, there's a video there as well. Um, and then at the end, the last couple of slides are just personal survey questions for me as to if you think it's something that's useful for you. So again, we have about 10 minutes. I'm here to answer whatever questions you have, sort of whatever you want to explore. Leslie says she's bookmarked all of them. Speaking of bookmarks, once you have your Desmos account as a teacher, when you find an activity you like, you can save it. So as a math teacher, I would look up, okay, I need, lessons on parallel lines, and I would look up on Google all the lessons on parallel lines and then save them all, and then I would go and like look, okay, which ones would be useful for my students. um, Another interesting fact about looking for some, if you make your Desmos account, and there is a search box at the top, but it doesn't really turn up lots of different things that are useful. It's mainly just the things that have been made strictly by the Desmos sort of, I guess, company. If you want to find the hundreds and thousands of things made by other teachers, you have to go to Google. I always just go to Google and type in like Desmos activity and then parallel lines or whatever I might be looking for, and then there will be a bunch of stuff there, and you can use those. There is on the slideshow that's linked on slide 22, there is a video that kind of shows you how to do that. I'm also happy to meet with you at any time, sort of in Google Meet or whatever, and help you if this is something that you think you could use. I just like to mainly spend my time showing you the features so that you can start thinking if that's useful to you, and if it is, we'll you can contact me or try it on your own. And if you're like, this isn't really for me, then you're not spending your time learning how to use something that you're not really going to use. The Guess Who game will save you so much time. Yay! I love it's such a fun thing, and especially just even as a time filler thing, if you just need a few minutes, or people who might have homeroom or something like that, something fun to do. But as I said, I do it, I don't know, multiple times in a year, for basically any new unit that has visual things, which is a lot in math. So. Okay, Barbara mentioned that you've only used the pre-done activities, want to start creating your own. I learned a lot about creating my own this past year, since that's what I did every single day. Like I said, I would usually look for what other people have made on something. And it's possible to say, okay, well, I like what this person did for like 3 or 4 slides, and I don't like the rest of it, but I like what another person did. You can actually splice multiple ones together. It's very easy. And there is a video to show you how to do that on that green slideshow that's linked on slide 22, or I'll be happy to show people at a later time. But I'll never just use a pre-made activity on Desmos again. It'll always sort of be that modified by me for exactly what I want it to say. Slideshows access denied. Let me try it here. It's supposed to be sort of for everybody that has the link, but okay, I think that's what it is. Let's change that. Anyone with the link, sorry. All right, should work now. Let me know. See if that works, Vanessa. It looks like you guys are hopping in there, so it must be working. You're awesome. Sorry, sometimes things get set, like, as you all know, with all the Google stuff for, like, just your county or whatever, and I thought I had it fixed on I think I must have fixed it on all the videos, but maybe not this slideshow. And if anything ever isn't working that you wanna see, you can always just email me. My email is, jessica.m.thomas@k12.wv.us, and I'll be happy to help you with it. Um, and again, you can if you signed in anyways, I noticed a few of you didn't actually, like, sign into Desmos or, like, create an account, but as long as you sign in, if you go back to student.desmos.com, there'll be, like, a list of your activities, and this one will be there, and then you can get back in and get to those things. Um, the other thing that wasn't really mentioned, if you might be interested in it, is Desmos does create classes. So all of my students were enrolled in, like, first period, and then when I made a lesson, I would assign it to the class, just like you kind of do in Google Classroom. And then anybody who was in first period automatically got it to show up on their dashboard. You guys, I just sent you, like, a singular code, so you can do that if you don't have, like, a class that you want to send it to. Maybe you have, like, a pull out group of a few students or something. But if you have a class that you're always going to be sending one lesson to everybody, you would just say assign it to that class. And all those things are explained on the slideshow in 22, because I just don't really want to go over it, all of it. It's a lot of stuff to really show you how to use something. A lot of people are pretty sort of flexible and like to just kind of figure things out on their own in the first place. Awesome. I'm glad this seems like this is something that's useful for you. A lot of people are saying I'll definitely kind of try it sometime. Hopefully, we never have a fully remote learning situation ever again. But if we do, I know what I'm going to use, and it's going to be this. Because again, they can. I always made it so that okay, if you couldn't make your Google Meet time, you know that the Desmos lesson is there, and you can go through it on your own and click here to watch the video of how to solve the equation, then go to the next slide and solve them. So it is a really great tool for remote type learning. I said I'll definitely be using it for the days that we have like the bad weather and the students stay at home. I'll definitely use it for that. And there's lots of other cool things. We have about 3 minutes left. If you have any other questions, you can put them on. I see Stephanie will answer yours in a second. You can put them in the chat or slide 21 had a question place. I will say that at 2 o'clock, I'm doing another session on Desmos, which is a little bit more geared just towards like math and some of the other things that can keep it really engaging for students, keeping them sort of on track. But even if you're not math and you need something to do at 2 o'clock, you can come to that one and you'll see some of the other cool things that we can do with the program that you couldn't really get explored here. Thank you, Leslie. Stephanie, I saw that you said, is there a built-in screen reader or speech to text and Chrome extensions? I believe the Chrome extensions should work with it. And the reason that I think so is because I had a student from Vietnam this past year who didn't speak any English, and Desmos, he had whatever extension that he has on his computer to change things to Vietnamese so he could read it, it changed on Desmos for him. So he was able to still participate in everything we did. The only things that it would not change is like if the card sorts, you can put text in, like I think mine was text, it said like La Tortuga for the turtle. But if it had been like a picture of the words La Tortuga, it wouldn't change that, of course. So I would imagine that the screen reader features would work because he could translate it. So I believe so. Desmos, they really care about math education, and as I said, everything is completely free that they have and always has been. So I would think that that would be something that would have been considered by them. Oh, hi. I said I did recognize your name, Cassie. I couldn't remember. I mean, I thought it was just because of MHS person. Who was your, if you don't care, who was your son again? I don't remember now. Oh, that's right. That's right. Okay, and then he also wasn't in the spring semester with me. That's right. So it's like I was like this like deep in the recesses of my brain that yes, I've talked to you before, but that's why because it was in the fall. Yeah, so it was really so the kids sometimes kind of hated like, oh, we're doing a Desmos again. Um, but mostly it was pretty useful for them. Actually, they realized that like, oh, I don't have to like do a Google Doc and make sure that I submit it, and then I got to make a presentation or a flip grade. Like some teachers use so many different tools that it was overwhelming and it was always just the same thing for me. And if I wanted them to do something else, if we were going to play Kahoot, I would just like have a slide that would say, okay, we're going to play Kahoot now. And then we would play it and then we'd come back. Or if we wanted to play on a different website or a different game, I would just put the link and we'd go play and then we'd come back. So it was a neat way to organize everything. So it's also maybe a good idea for like a substitute day. If you say, okay, kids, this is the one thing you click on and everything you need is going to be in there, even if the substitute helps facilitate it, everything's in one place. I don't have to look for it. Right, it is 150. Yeah, the self-checking parts are great if you learn how to do that. And so there's not really any manual for that. I had to figure it out myself, which was super fun. But yeah, it's a little bit, but everything was kind of a little bit complainy last year for everybody. So it's really great to have the self-checking if you learn how to do it. But it is tricky to learn how to do that. I had to just teach that to myself. All right. Now, people. All right, thank you guys. I said I might see some of you in a few minutes in the next one, but thank you for coming. If you ever need anything, you can just send me an email. My email's on the last slide. Thank you, Vanessa. I'm glad I got to teach you something.